there, my name is Stephanie and today I'm going to teach you how to make rope bowls or baskets. So you can make them any size just using rope that's found at Home Depot. I buy the 100-foot poly cotton braided rope. It is $9.98 for about 100 yards, or sorry, 100 feet, and it will make about 3 medium-sized bowls. You can also pick up this twisted sort of natural rope. It gives it a different look. Either one works great and can be found at your hardware store. And again, these can be customized to be really big bowls for maybe your knitting yarn or really tiny bowls, all depending on how sort of big you make your base to start off with. So we'll grab our supplies and we'll get started. So just a close-up of the type of rope I use about 3/16 inch. And it's the diamond braid. Again, this brand is found at Home Depot down the ropes aisle. And then the other option is the twisted rope, and this one is 1/4 inch and 50 feet. So either one will work. I prefer the natural look. It gives it a softer look. Again, you can use matching thread, which I'll be demonstrating today, or you can be using a contrast thread, and it gives the bowls and baskets a different look. So some settings that you'll want to make sure you have your machine set to is we'll be assembling our bowl with a zigzag stitch, and then we're going to put it to the widest zigzag possible and keeping our stitch length about around the 2.5 or standard stitch length. You can use a normal foot. Some people have a cording foot and that's awesome too. I'm just going to use our regular foot today. Your first step is to open your rope, and if your rope doesn't come with tape around the end, I highly recommend you just take a little piece of Scotch tape, tape your end up, and kind of just twirl it around, and then we'll cut it in the middle. This is a good way to just keep your ends sealed. So I'm just going to cut right in the middle here. And then my tip won't start unraveling, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start to roll this tightly kind of into a little rounded shape like this. And I am just going to do about 3 whole coils just to get started. And then I'm going to put a pin in it to hold. So I'm going to stop about there. I'm going to take a pin and pin it in and kind of just pin it through just so it holds my circle. Another thing you want to be aware of is that your circle, your tail of your cording should always come off of the right hand side of your circle, because we're going to keep twirling it in, I guess, the counterclockwise direction as we sew, so that we can lift up our bowl and it won't get in the way of our sewing machine. This will make more sense once we get started, but we just want to make sure that our cording is coming off the right side of our circle, not off of the left side like that. So I'm going to put this in my sewing machine, and ultimately I'm going to line it up to start here, and I'm going to zigzag across the seam of my coil and just slowly turning it to grab one side of each of this cording. It's a little hard to get started because you kind of sew at it a little bit blindly in the middle, but as your circle circumference gets larger, it becomes a whole lot easier. Okay, so I have my coil underneath my foot, and I have it starting right in the very center where that taped end was. And I'm just going to start very slowly, and you can do this using your hand wheel or with your foot control. And I'm just going to take a few stitches here, give it a little back stitch, and I'm just going to look underneath my foot to try to grab each side of my cording. At the very beginning, you will have to sort of lift up your foot a few times to get it tightly around that tight circle. So I'm going to take a couple more stitches and then kind of keep spinning it until it sort of got into a solid circle. So this is what I have. This is my start of my base of my bowl. I recommend you using a matching thread if you're starting out. It's a little more forgiving, because honestly, if your bottom of your bowl, no one will see it, doesn't work out super awesome because you couldn't see really where you were sewing, that's okay. The cream matching thread kind of hides that and is a little more forgiving. I wanted to just keep showing you up close how this just keeps coming together until you've decided how big of a bowl you wanted to make. So again, you can see that the cording is coming off of the right hand side of the bowl, and now all I'm going to do is keep going in a circle and allowing my zigzag to grab one side of each part of the rope or cording. Okay, and I'm just spinning the bowl as I sew all the way around. And I'm holding my base flat against my machine right now. I'm not lifting it at all yet. I want to keep my base nice and smooth and flat. So you continue doing this until you've reached your desired size of your bowl, because your base will determine the size of the bowl you are going to make. I have finished the size of my base. I have sewn for about 4 inches, so my diameter of this circle is going to be 4 inches. It's going to make a smaller little plant pot holder. So as soon as I've reached what I want my basket to be as far as size, I'm going to decide how I want my sides to go. So the higher you hold your bowl up while you sew like this, the steeper the sides will come up. If you hold it at about more of a 45, they'll be more slow and gradual as they come up. So I'm going to hold mine pretty high up while I sew. And so once you want to start making shape to your bowl, you're going to hold this up against your machine as high as you can. And also, if you keep a little tension on your cord as you sew, the sides will go a little straighter as well. So I'm going to practice both of those, and I'm going to just sew the same technique as I've been doing, and just letting the cording unroll as I sew, trying to stitch on either side, and holding my bowl as high up as it can go. And now I'm going to keep doing this over and over until I reach my desired height of my bowl. So I pulled my little mini bowl out just to show you how the height is starting out. Also, if you ever do run out of bobbin or top thread, because this project eats up a lot of thread, that's okay. You just start again right where you left off with a little back stitch and continue on. I took it out because I'm actually going to switch my thread to gray, and I'm going to do a couple rows with sewing with gray to give it kind of a striped decorative look. It's just another variation of how you can customize your bowls. I just wanted to show you how changing your thread color can just add a design aspect to your bowl. So I've put in gray thread into my machine instead of cream thread, and I'm doing the exact same thing, and I'll probably do this for about 4 rounds, so I get about maybe a 1-inch stripe of gray, and then I'm going to go back to my cream again, and so it just gives this bowl a little personality. So I actually did it for 6 rows of gray, and now I'm going to put it back on with cream thread and continue up, and then it'll just look like it has this gray stripe along the bottom of my bowl, which I think will look quite nice. Another variation that I like to show you is that you can wrap your cording with, like I have just a scrap piece of fabric that's about cut 1 inch wide. It won't take on the motif, so these are actually an equal print fabric, but it will take on sort of the black and the brown colors of the fabric, and all I'm doing is wrapping with about a 1/2 inch overlap all the way around my cording. And when I do that, now I'll roll it into the shape that I want it. And so what's nice about these, once you have it pinned down, it's actually easier, kind of like friendship bracelets. So I'm going to actually put it underneath my machine with my needle down for just a second, and now I can kind of wrap this a little quicker and easier all the way around my cording. And then try not to let it fold over like that. You do want to keep your fabric smooth so it doesn't show any cording and it's just evenly rolled. I use these Wonder Clips to hold them in place instead of pins. It kind of works a little easier. And then you could use this wrapped material cording to go around your bowl over and over again. So you would see a stripe of decorative fabric wrapped in there, or your whole bowl could be covered with a decorative color and make it one. I'll attach some pictures of inspiration at the end of this video so you can see all sorts of ways that you could add personality to your bowl. So this step would just be wrapping your cording first and then rolling it into shape. So nothing new, you would just keep on sewing, zigzagging with your fabric rolled in versus just using the plain natural cording. I am now at the point where I like the height of my bowl and the size, and I want to add a little bit of a handle. So you could just finish it off and leave it plain, and I'll show you how you actually finish off when we get there on tapering your cording. I'm going to show you the variation of adding a handle in case anybody wants to do that. So I've just back stitched where I left off, and then I'm going to kind of bend out my cording like this. This is personal preference on how big of a handle you want in proportion with your bowl. We're going to just do sort of a 2 thickness in cording size handle, but you could do, and when I say 2, I'm going to use this one as an example, that it's just 2 cordings thick, but you could do this and do it 3 or 4. Probably you would want to do more if your bowl was bigger. So I'm just going to clip it where I like my handle to be, and you could do just one handle. I'm going to do one on this side as well. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to kind of pinch my bowl in half and say, okay, that is sort of half of my first handle, and I'm going to put a pin in halfway across, and then I'm going to squish my bowl like this and sort of put a pin in halfway across. This way I can try to get my handles to be as symmetrical and even on either side. So once I've done that, I'm going to take a tape measure and I'm going to measure how long of a cording I left. So I'm just going to kind of measure from the start of where my back stitching happened up and along to where my clip lays, and I am getting about 7 centimeters. Okay, so what I'm going to do is with a few clips, I'm going to just take my cording and clip it. Again, if you don't have clips, I'll show you with pins again. It's just like the beginning where you just pin kind of right down, careful of your fingers, just to secure your cording to stay. And then what we're going to do is also measure the width away from our pin. So our cording is 7 centimeters for our handle, and we've left about 2 centimeters away from the pin. So again, I can measure on this side where my halfway mark is and give myself a pin at 2 centimeters and another one 2 centimeters away from my center, and that's the gap where I don't want to actually sew it to my bowl. Okay, so I know we have lots of pins in here, but this was my middle pin I put. These are my 2 centimeter ones, so all I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop my cording right at that guy, leave a 7 centimeter little handle. So I'll put a pin in kind of at 7 centimeters, and that's the amount I want to loop to my other pin so that they are as close to being even as the other side as possible. So once you've done that, the hard part is over. You don't have to keep pinning this all the way around because we'll do that as we twirl. So again, this is where I let off with my back stitch. I am going to now put it in my machine, starting right where my clip is, to start sewing it down. Okay, so I have it under my machine again. I have it starting on my first pin. My handle is back here and just loose. I haven't done anything with that. I'm leaving sort of a gap and it'll make more sense once I sew it. So now you're just going to keep on going. Start off with a back stitch, because if you are using these as handles, they'll get pulled on. And I'm just working around my bowl, and these were my pins that I put on just to hold the cording in between my next handle. So I'll take them out as I approach them. And we will keep sewing. I'm almost at my blue pin, which is where I want to back stitch. So I'm just going to take out this last pin that got tucked under there, so I don't sew over it. And I'm going to sew up to my blue pin here. And now I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to take it out and I'll just show you what I've done here. There goes my little blue pin, that's okay. We'll grab him. I have sewn in between my handles, and then I stopped at my blue pin to leave my next handle, and now I'm going to start again over here. There's no sewing in between there, just like there wasn't here, and attach it. And so we're going to put it right back in our machine to start right here. So now you've done the exact same thing on the other side. I started at my pin, I've zigzagged it, and now I've reached where my handle on my first side is sort of hanging off my bowl. So all I want to do is butt my two handle pieces together. And so I'm just going to hold them sort of close together as I sew again. And I'm not attaching it to, obviously, my bowl. I am just zigzagging it to my handle that's sticking up. And just twirl your bowl a little bit. And now we're going to be coming down. Gotta keep my fingers out of the way so you can kind of see. But now I am just coming back onto my corded bowl. So now you can go back around again and do the same and just attach it as your second handle with a zigzag just to the part that's sticking out. And I'll show you how to finish off your bowl. So once you've sewn your handles and you're almost at the end of your bowl, again, you could keep doing a third around for however thick you want your handles to be. I'm just going to do 2 for this sort of small plant pot. I'm going to show you 2 variations of ending it. So one is this bowl, and so when you zigzagged along, all you wanted to do was sort of taper off your cording and make sure you do a really nice zigzag along the top edge here, just to seal in that raw edge of your cording. And so it just sort of tapers right into your handle. That is one way to end your bowl. And then obviously you would just cut your end off. If you needed to go back in and do another zigzag or even add a little fray check there, that would work. This one I'm going to actually cut longer because I'm going to add a couple beads to hang down. And I thought this might be a cute idea. So I can always cut it shorter. So I'm going to give myself a fair bit so I can knot it. So I'm actually just going to cut it, and then I'm going to get some beads and put them on the end. So what I've done is I've just put 2 sort of chunky beads on there, knotted my bottom, and then cut my length off, just to add a different personality to my bowl as well. So you can put your planter in there now, and it's made a really nice personalized gift to give somebody. This is just a 4-inch little succulent, and when you put it into your homemade little basket, it's a really great little gift to give somebody. So there's so many ways to create these bowls with using contrasting thread, fabric scraps, and the shape that you make it. I hope you've enjoyed my tutorial. I will warn you that once you get started on making fabric bowls, you'll be addicted and want to keep making more and more. I hope you've enjoyed my tutorial. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more easy to do, fun little projects.